All right, next up, how do you justify the cost of cybersecurity? So to tell us that is Kevin D. Walker, the Security Chief Technology and Strategy Officer for Juniper's Development and Innovation Organization. He's responsible for driving the security strategy both internally within Juniper and externally with investors, partners, influencers, and customers. He provides the guidance required for JDL to conceive, develop, and create momentum for industry-leading security solutions. Working closely with the security engineering team, Walker identifies the opportunities for improved security growth and innovation to deliver the scalable, reliable, and compliant security architecture needed in today's security landscape. Please welcome Kevin Walker.
Thank you. It sounds like it was written by my mother, but
I just read it.
You just read it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for allowing me to spend a few minutes with you and share some practices that I think may be able to help. Now, what I have to share with you is that my role as a CTO, I'm in an engineering side, so I'm build things, right? Build things that we believe that will be transformative into cyberspace. But for the last 25 years, I've been a practitioner. CISO multiple roles, and most recently at the largest retailer in the world. And what I saw as a practitioner over the years hasn't changed. It hasn't changed, right? 30 years we've had AV, 25 years now we've had a stateful packet firewall. We've had UTM for already 12 years. But we just keep adding, right? Keep adding stuff and adding stuff and adding stuff with the hope that we're going to reduce or improve our posture and reduce our attacks. How many think that's working? No, seriously, how many think that's working? One, okay, so you have a system of two, right? And that's it, and they're off, and they're air gaps. So you're perfect, you're fine, you won't have a problem at all. But the rest of us aren't that fortunate. And I think what I want to do is share a couple of experiences and thoughts of how to actually justify your existence, justify your team, and more importantly, how to attract talent. So let's go back to the Halcyon days of 1986. We had a whopping 0 internet attacks. Who remembers the first one? Morris Worm, right? That was the first internet attack, not a network attack, but an internet attack. And now here we are in ludicrous mode. And there's no going back. Over those years, we not only have increased the types, the velocity, and the quality of the malware, but also the plan form, right? Back in the day, I think it was, as Keith has just expressed, right, a lot of the ransomware attacks are, you know, they're on systems that are, quote, unpatched or whatever, vulnerable and the like. That's not going to go away. It's going to increase. I think the first time that I heard, I think the hospital, I think, Keith, that you referred to, that one scared me, because now all of a sudden you're in an ER and your attending physician can't get your records. That's scary. This is no longer fun. And I think what happens is that we've realized that, as I said, the platforms are changing, because in 2004, we had the first GPU attack. I was a Symantec at the time. And that changed everything, because now we realize that it's no longer just, you know, your PC or what have you, but it's also the associated components of that device that are also susceptible. Of course, that, you know, a few years later we see that in Stuxnet. Again, this changes everything. So, you know, the network attacks continue. We had, you know, DDoS still works. You know, we have 50G is easy, and 620 has been claimed as not quite confirmed in the past several months. But that means that you need to have a 621 gig channel to conduct your business or operation, and most of us don't have that. We see that the attack landscape has changed a little bit, because now DDoS is used as a guise for something else. So we have to be aware that these things that we've been witnessing and experiencing for the last 30 years aren't really changing. The top attacks are the same. The position in the ranking may move around a little bit, but it's the same old stuff. And I think at the end of the day, we really need to change the paradigm. We've used the notion of castle and moat. We've used the notion of perimeter defense. We've used the notion now, of course, of defense in depth, but it's still not working. Something has to fundamentally change. And what we believe is that the network itself has to be the arbiter and the defense and enforcement mechanism. We call this the next-gen cyber defense. And I think what we need to do is to look at some of the attributes of the next generation to help us to improve our security programs, right? As I said before, one of the things that's a very difficult problem for many of us, I don't care who you are in public or private sector, is talent. So we need to work far smarter. We need to leverage the technology far better. And in our case, from the Juniper's perspective, we need to leverage the network itself so that we can put that time and resources back in our pocket for that very difficult talent that we do have to have. So we have customers who routinely will say, a third of their resources are spent just care and feeding the security fabric. That makes no sense. So, what are we doing, right? We keep adding more stuff, and we're taking time and resources out of our very fragile, very limited budget just to care for the system itself. That doesn't make much sense. So, our next generation, we propose embracing federation. That's both intra and inter-federation. That means you need to know who's coming to your systems. You need to know with affirmation who's coming to your systems. We will assume virtualization by default. We've been in this massive move to the cloud now for nearly almost 12 years in some cases, as 15 if you include some of the early incarnations of Salesforce. But we still use the old models of what we're building. It doesn't work. All we're doing is moving the problem, and oh, by the way, we're actually exposing it quite a bit more for the attackers. And we need to really be serious about automation. There's a lot of the routine work that's being done by humans today on teams that's, again, very costly, very resource intensive, that should be done by automation. I had a rule for one of my teams years ago that was if you did anything twice a week, 2 times per week, it was subject to automation. And with that in mind, we found that we had a ridiculous reduction of manual interaction, somewhere in the order of 30% within the first year. One of the things we also will be proposing more of is encryption as a microservice. Now, I think Michael may have mentioned encryption in his presentation. Encryption is not a panacea by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, for one thing, key management is a massive problem. How do you deal with the encryption that you conducted in October of 2016 in 2024 with a machine that's no longer in existence? Oh, by the way, that stack that created that, the SDK for the crypto key is gone. What do you do? These are real big. This is where we do need to work very closely with the public sector to make sure that legislators understand the ramifications of the technology, the limitations, and oh, by the way, their future proofing of it is not a guarantee. We also need to leverage machine learning a lot more than we are today. In the Juniper solution we have in our cloud security offering, it's enabled by machine learning, but all that's doing basically is, again, really allow just all the automation. But we're trying to learn from previous examples. I think Michael brought up a really good point where, I'm sorry, Keith did, with regard to one of the attacks being a 9-year-old vulnerability. That is extraordinarily common. Most of the attacks, most successful breaches are not from 0 days or a custom crafted malware. It's from it's 2007 or 2009 CVE. So there's a lot we need to be aware of as we go through and try to continue our position of improving our security posture. But the fundamentals will always be there unless we have a different way of approaching it. We need to mandate a reputation. This is one of the areas that's growing, is growing fast, and we're starting to see a lot of benefit of not just by URL, but also contextual URL. What are they doing when they're coming from a certain site? And we also have to insist on open APIs as well from our vendors. If it's a closed system, it's a closed solution. We really need to make sure that whatever we build into our ecosystems can play with others as well, including, for example, in Juniper, the threat feeds. We can take threat feeds from well-known third-party vendors, or those from that you may have yourself. For example, in the financial community, FSI SACs, they have incredibly great threat feeds for their domain. Well, whatever solutions you use should be able to incorporate those. I'll talk a lot more about the next generation, what we're doing, so that again you can put time back and resources back into your portfolio. And I believe as a practitioner, that is the way we need to go. I've been asking my vendors for 20 years, why doesn't the network solve my problem? Why do I keep adding more stuff and getting less results? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kevin. That was excellent, and you caught us up.